If you can use anything, Lord, you can use me. If you can use anything, Lord, you can use me. Take my hands and my feet. Touch my heart, Lord, and speak through me. If you can use anything, Lord, please feel free to use me. In the name of Jesus Christ, the crucified and risen one, we pray and we thank God. And the church said, amen. Joshua chapter 2. Joshua chapter 2, beginning with verse number 1, concluding with verse number 13. Joshua chapter 2, beginning with verse number 1, says, And Joshua the son of Nun sent out of Shittim 2 men to spy secretly, saying, Go view the land, even Jericho. And they went and came into an harlot's house named Rahab, and lodged there. And it was told the king of Jericho, saying, Behold, there came men in hither tonight of the children of Israel to search out the country. And the king of Jericho sent unto Rahab, saying, Bring forth the men that are come to thee, which are entered into thine house, for they be come to search out all the country. And the woman took the 2 men and hid them, and said thus, There came men unto me, but I wist not whence they were. And it came to pass about the time of the shutting of the gate, when it was dark, that the men went out. Whither the men went, I wot not. Pursue after them quickly, for ye shall surely overtake them. And she had brought them up to the roof of the house, and hid them with the stalks of flax, which she had laid in order upon the roof. And the men pursued after them the way to Jordan unto the fords. And as soon as they which pursued after them were gone out, they shut the gate. And before they were laid down, she came up unto them upon the roof. And she said unto the men, I know that the Lord had given you the land, and that your terror is fallen upon us, and that all the inhabitants of the land faint because of you. For we have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea for you, when ye came out of Egypt, and what ye did unto the 2 kings of the Amorites, which were on the other side of Jordan, Sihon and Og, whom ye utterly destroyed. And as soon as we heard these things, our hearts did melt. Neither did there remain any more courage in any man because of you. For the Lord your God, he is God in heaven above and in earth beneath. Verse 12 says, Now therefore I pray you, swear unto me by the Lord, since I have showed you kindness, that you will also show kindness unto my father's house, and give me a true token, and that ye will save alive my father and my mother, and my brethren and my sisters, and all that they have, and deliver our lives from death. I want to talk from the subject which simply says, I'll be the one. I'll be the one. John Quincy Archibald and his wife Denise witnessed their young son Michael collapse at his baseball game. After a series of tests at the hospital, John is informed by Dr. Raymond Turner and Rebecca Payne, a hospital administrator, that Michael has an enlarged heart and he will need a transplant. However, because the company that John works for has demoted him from full-time to part-time, his health insurance has changed as well, and now the new policy that he has, it does not cover the surgery that young Michael needs in order to live. They have to raise $75,000 of the $250,000 needed just to get Michael's name on the donor transplant list. The family tries to raise money, but as fate would have it, they don't come up with enough money. And so eventually the hospital gets tired of waiting on John Q to do something, and they decide that they have to release Michael, and that Michael and John and Denise have to figure out what they're going to do for their young son, Michael. as John calls Denise his wife and talks to her and they converse back and forth, Denise tells John, do something. And so as John hears the words of his wife Denise telling him to do something, he now begins to take matters into his own hands. So what he does is he gets a handgun and he goes into the emergency room and he holds everyone in the emergency room hostage, and he demands that his son's name be placed on the donor recipient list as soon as possible. My sisters and my brothers, John reveals the intention to commit suicide so that his heart can be transplanted into his son's body so that he will die but his son will live. Dr. Turner begins to talk to him and tell him that this is not possible. This cannot be done. And so while everybody is being held hostage in the hospital, what happens is John decides that he's going to take his own life. And so what he does is he loads the gun in his hand, and what he begins to do is he puts the gun up to his head, only to realize that as he pulls the trigger, the safety is still on. What happens now is John is laying on the table. John is laying in the hospital, and he now understands that I have to pull this trigger one more time. But this particular time, before the trigger is pulled on that gun and before the bullet is released from the barrel, Denise runs to the hospital because she has now received word that in the beginning of the movie there was an accident and there was a woman who lost her life because she was killed in a crash, who so happens to have the same blood type as Michael. And so what they're going to do is they're going to take this woman's heart and put it in young Michael's body. And so Denise says, John, they found a heart. John, they found a transplant. And so as the movie begins to conclude, you will soon find and soon see that John and Denise are able to look at the surgery being performed on their son Michael. But after the surgery is completed, now John has to come out and turn himself over into the hands of the police, and now he is in custody. My sisters and my brothers, in this text today, Joshua chapter 2, we see that Joshua the son of Nun is now the leader of Israel. Moses is now dead, and Joshua has the awesome responsibility of leading the people to the promised land. Here it is. Joshua receives word from the Lord. Joshua is told on numerous occasions to be strong and of a good courage because the Lord is with you. Don't be dismayed, because just as I was with Moses, so shall I be with you. My sisters and my brothers, as you read chapters 1 and 2 of the book of Joshua, you will find that Joshua now begins to talk to the people, and he tells the people, go and prepare some food, because in 3 days we are about to head over the Jordan and we're going over into the promised land. We headed from this place and we're going over to Canaan land, a land that is flowing with milk and honey. But before they could get to Canaan, they had to pass through Jericho. Now understand this, people of God. Jericho was a walled city, and they knew that if they could take Jericho, they could easily split the country in two and invade both the north and the south. But before they could go into the business of defeating Jericho, they had to scope out the land and see what they were up against. And so the text tells us today that Joshua sends 2 spies into Jericho, and when they get there, they enter into Rahab the harlot's house. I see three things in the text that we'll discuss and we'll be down from this place. The first thing I see in the text in Joshua chapter 2, between verses 3 through 7, is protection. Somebody say protection. They enter into Jericho, and the reason they go into Rahab the harlot's house is because there were many men that would go in and out of prostitutes' houses, and so it would not cause too much attention if just two other men went into the house at that particular time. But by the time they get in there, there is something that they notice. Yes, Rahab was messed up. Yes, Rahab was a prostitute. Yes, Rahab didn't have it all together. Yes, Rahab was selling her body. But if you read the text close enough, you will see that by the time they get into Rahab's house, they notice there's something different about Rahab now. They notice that Rahab don't look like she used to look. They notice Rahab don't do the stuff that she used to do, because that lets me know it does not matter how messed up you are, how far away you've fallen, how far away you backslidden. Even if you left the church, I've come to tell you today on the third Sunday of September 2019 that God is in the restoration business. I wonder, is there anybody in Greater Grace this morning that don't mind testifying that you've had God restore some stuff in your life? You look back through the pages of your life and you should have gave up a long time ago, but God is in the restoration business. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, he will restore you. Because see, I found out that God has a tendency to do his best work with messed up people. How do I know? Because he keep on using you and he keep on using me. I know you look good on this Sunday morning. I know we don't know all about your life. And I know we just sit next to you and worship week after week. But you got some stuff in your life that you don't want nobody to find out about. But the Lord keep on using you. Why? Because the seasoned saints put it like this. He looks beyond your faults and he sees your needs. Here it is. Here it is. The text says that the king of Jericho receives word that two men from Israel have come into our city to scope out the city. They've come in to see what's going on amongst our people. And so what we need you to do is, we need you to go, or give us permission to go to Rahab's house, because we have reason to believe that's where they are. They go to Rahab's house and they say, Rahab, there were two men that just came into your house. We need you to turn them over to us, because they are not our people. They are not from Jericho. In fact, they are Israelites. And they've come just to see what's going on in our city. Rahab says, excuse me? I don't know what you're talking about. Rahab, because she knew underneath it all that these were God's chosen people. She said, I don't quite comprehend what it is you're saying. In other words, let me put it like this. She said, it's above me now. And so what happens is, she says, the truth of the matter is, some men came in, but I don't know where they went. I've been looking through the house, but I don't know where they are. This lets me know that God has a way of using even the least of them to protect you and keep you covered. You better be careful how you treat folk, because you don't know, that may be the vessel and that may be the person that God uses to cover you when you need to be covered. See, See, you got to be careful how you entertain strangers, because some have entertained angels. You don't know who God has assigned to your life for your protection. Is there anybody here that can testify that you've been blessed from an unlikely source? I know sometimes you sow seeds on this side, but sometimes you'll reap a harvest on this side. You won't always reap from lands that you have sown. You never know who God is going to use for your protection. Here it is. So Rahab says, well, do this. They probably left back out of the city gate. And so I know it's getting dark right now, but if you leave now and pursue after them, I'm quite sure that you will be able to overtake them. The men look at Rahab and say, thank you so much for this information. What they do is now they begin to head outside of the city gate. And the Bible says that when nighttime fell, that the city gate was now shut. But what they did not know was that when they came into Rahab's house, she said, no, I know you're not here for what every other man is here for. I know you're here because you've been sent by God. You've been sent by your leader Joshua. You've been sent by the God of heaven and earth. And so what we're going to do is we're not going to take you to the bedroom. We're going to take you to the roof of the house. And I wonder, is there anybody in the room that don't mind testifying that you bypassed the bedroom and now you being protected on the roof? Look at your neighbors and say, I thank God for the roof. Because in reality, the reason you here right now is because God has been keeping you. And one thing I love about God is that he keeps us even when we don't want to be kept. Do I have about 25 people, and I make number 26, that don't mind testifying that there were times in your life where you said, God, just let me have my way. God, I want to do it my way. God, I want it just like this. But God said, not so, because you can only see the right now, but I can see your future. And you realize or recognize that if you had got what you wanted right then and there, your future would have been forfeited. High five your neighbor, say, neighbor, he's a keeper. See, you got to thank God that he has a way of protecting you. That even when situations don't seem favorable for everybody else, God has a way of giving you a different outcome. See, that sickness that's in your body right now, that somebody else done died from, but you still alive with it, God just gave you a different outcome. That trouble that you are still managing to muster strength to get through, that is taking somebody else out of here, God is just giving you the strength and a different outcome. I wonder, is there anybody here that don't mind putting all your business on Front Street today and saying that there have been times in your life when you was about to go plumb crazy, you was about to lose your mind, you was at the edge of going off. You was about to give everybody a piece of your mind. You was going to pop everybody off. You was going to tell them where to go and how to get there. But God kept your mind before you even went that far, because God is a keeper. Don't be fooled just because you see them clapping their hands right now. Don't be fooled because you heard them singing right along with the choir today. Oh, they still know some of them four-letter words that ain't Lord and ain't in the Bible. And if you meet them at the right time, at the right moment, they will use them on you. But you better thank God that although you still cuss, you don't cuss as much as you used to. Although you still drink, you don't drink as much as you used to. And you don't get sloppy drunk no more. You better thank God that he been keeping your mind. Is there anybody here know that the scripture says he will keep you in perfect peace if your mind is stayed on? I just need you to tap 3 people and say, he's a keeper, he's a keeper, he's a keeper. When you realize that the only reason you here is because God's been keeping you, you'll mess around and get happy by your own doggone self. When you realize and recognize that it's a blessing to be walked out of your house and then be able to walk back in your house, that means God done kept you all day long. You will get happy by your own doggone self. When you realize and recognize that the same streets that you drive down, somebody else lost their life on, but you able to drive down them because the blood of Jesus covers you, and you able to testify about it, that's because God been keeping you, and you'll get happy by your own doggone self. Is there anybody in here that thank God that he keep you better than ADT can? He keep you better than Alarm 1 can. He keeps you better than Insure 1 can. He keeps you better than Geico or State Farm or Farm Bureau can. Just look at your neighbor and say, he has been keeping me. Oh, to be kept by Jesus. It feels good to be kept by. Woo! When God keeps you, you start shouting, you start getting excited. When you think about how he keeps you, it's enough for you to throw up both your hands and say, Lord, I show enough. Yeah. When God keeps you, and when God got his hand on you, ain't nothing that the devil or his imps can do to you or do with you. See, that's why the songwriter put it like this. If you dig one ditch, you better dig two, because the trap you set just might be for you, because they trying to figure out how is it that you still got a smile on your face with all the hell you've been dealing with. They trying to figure out how is it that you still showing up to church every Sunday morning and you still come up in here with a praise on your lips and thanksgiving in your heart, and they know everything that you up against in your own personal life. They trying to figure out why you ain't gave up, gave out, and gave in because of all the trials, tribulation, tests, and tragedies that you've been through. And you look at them and say, it ain't because of me, but it's because God been keeping me. Before I move on to point number 2, encourage somebody else and say, God is a keeper. Yeah, he will. He'll keep you. And so she had laid them down up on the roof of the house, not allowing the king of Jericho or his men to bother God's men. Let me stick a pin right here. I'm trying to move forward. This is not in my notes, but I want to tell somebody that even though folk will plot and scheme against you, when God got his hand on you, he will fix it so that your enemy will be in your face and they can't even see you, because you covered by the blood. I wish I had some help in here. I need about 55 of y'all that don't mind testifying that when the enemy came in like a flood, the Spirit of the Lord lifted up a standard against them. And you realize, and your testimony is, no weapon formed against me shall prosper, and every tongue that rises up in judgment shall be condemned. Your testimony is that when you're going through life's ups and downs, because he's a good keeper, the Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear? He's the strength of my life, of whom shall I be afraid? Why? Because he's been keeping. As I continue to read the text. So first of all, between verses 3 through 7, protection. But then I kept reading, and between verses 8 through 11, secondly, I see proclamation. Somebody say proclamation. But by the time they head into Rahab's house, they find that Rahab is in rehab. See, because now when she talks to them, she don't talk like old Rahab used to talk. Now when she addresses them, she don't address them like old Rahab. would have addressed them. See, Rahab was going through her rehab at this time. Because as they began to converse with one another, because by the time we get to verse number 8, the Bible says she comes up to the roof where they were. And she says, I know who you all are. He said, because y'all don't look like the other men that we've serviced in here before. Y'all don't even dress like the men that have come in and out of these doors. And she said, matter of fact, we've serviced them so much till we just about know who all the men in Jericho are. And you all don't favor any of the men that we've serviced before. So I know you're not here for that type of service. But when we heard about your God, something started to happen. Something started to move. When we heard about the God that you serve and the God that you represent, something on the inside started moving. Because they looked at her and said, well, what is it that you have heard? She said, well, to be quite honest, we know about how your God allowed you all to be delivered from Egyptian captivity. And by the time you got to the Red Sea, you had water in front of you. You had mountains on both sides of you. And you had Pharaoh and his army behind you. Oh, yeah, we heard the story. We heard about how, what's his name again? Moses stretched out that rod. And the water began to part. And you all walked through the first aquarium that's been ever known to men. She said, yeah, we know about how when you all got on the other side of the Red Sea, how that same God that held up the waters on both sides for you, he allowed the waters to come down crashing down and drown Pharaoh and his army in that same water. Oh, yeah, we know about your God. We even know about how you all went and defeated the two kings of the Amorites, Sihon and Og, and you utterly destroyed them. We know about your God and about what he has done in your life. And my sisters and my brothers, I wonder, is there anybody on the third Sunday know a little something about this God that I'm talking about? Is there anybody here that can pinpoint not two things, not three things, but one thing that God has done in your life that will make you just throw up your hands and get happy and start to testifying about the goodness of the Lord? Because the scripture says, let the redeemed of the Lord. I got some Bible readers in here. See, when you know about God, you ought to be ready to testify about him. See, that's why this is called a corporate worship experience. We don't come to church for service. We come for worship experience. And I said the other week that you can get more physically in God's house than you can by just streaming the service. Because there's a type of corporate atmosphere that you can't get sitting on your couch or laying in your bed. And we thank God for those avenues when you can't make it. But if you can make it, you ought to press your way to his house. You ought to come on up in his house. Because when you sit next to your brother or sister, you get some encouragement that you can't get by yourself. When you sit next to your brother and sister, you hear folks saying that the Lord will make a way somehow. That's why I'm an interactive type of preacher. I tell you, touch your neighbor, high five your neighbor, hug your neighbor, because maybe sometimes this is the only interaction that you get with like-minded people. You work with hellish folk. Somebody live in the house with hellish folk. You drive up and down the street with hellish folk. You shop in grocery stores with hellish folk. You go to the beauty shop and barber shop with hellish folks. But when you come to the house of God, you come up in here with saints that come to give God praise and glory. That's why I tell you, high five your neighbor and say, God is good. Hug your neighbor and tell him God will make a way. Is there anybody here that knows something about the Lord and know that he will make a way? See, but check this out. I'm still in the text. Verse number 9, she says, I already know that God has given your people this land. So there is no question about what's going to happen. We know that eventually you all are going to invade Jericho. I know that's going to happen. Verse 10, she reminds them of what their God had done. But verse 11, she says, when we heard these things, our hearts began to melt. And no more courage was in any man to fight the stuff that we already knew. But I like the end of verse number 11 because she says, he is God. Y'all didn't catch it. She said, he is God. And then she said, just for clarification, because it's a whole lot of other gods out here. She said, let me tell you what he is. He is God in heaven above and in earth. But in other words, see, when you know for yourself, I'm not talking about what nobody else knows. I'm talking about when you know for your. I'm not talking about what grandma told you, what granddaddy taught you, what mama or daddy told you, but you ought to have some type of experience with the man for yourself. She said he is God. In other words, he is Jehovah. He is eternal. He is immortal. He is invincible. He is omnipotent. He is omnipresent. He is omniscient. He is everything I need him. Is there anybody in here that know him to be God for yourself? See, I'm getting excited by my own doggone self because I found out that what I love about him is that he doesn't have to stop being what I need him to be because you need him to be something for you. See, our God is a good multitasker. In other words, you can need him to be a doctor today. Somebody else can need him to be a lawyer today. And someone else need him to be a provider today. And guess what? While he's doctoring on you, while he's getting them out of trouble, and while he's providing a way for them, he's still God. Is there anybody in the room that don't mind testifying that he is, high five your neighbor, say neighbor, he is God? Yeah, she said he's God in heaven above. But then she said he's also God in earth beneath, which lets me know that I don't have to wait till I get to heaven above to experience and see some of his best work. But what he will do is allow me to see some of his work in earth beneath. You don't believe me? I'm looking at you right now. You some of his best work. You are a testimony of how God is still in the healing business. You're a testimony of how God is still in the miracle working business. You're a testimony of how God is still in the way making business. You're a testimony of how God is still in the way providing business. Is there anybody besides me? I need about 75 of y'all, and I'll make number 76 that don't mind testifying that one thing you do know is that he is God, and beside him there is none other. Yeah. So Rahab, as she is exceeding in her 12-step program. Yeah. Yeah, as she's going through her rehabilitation right now. I believe that she started shouting after she started talking about the goodness of this God. Because the reality is, you can't talk about how good he is without getting happy. You can't talk about what he's done for you without tears starting to fall down your eyes sometime. You can't talk about how he done healed your body without you getting choked up sometime and say, you know what, let me just stop right there because I mess around and be talking about this to this time next week because I know he ain't done just one thing for you, but let me give you 3 reasons why you ought to just give God some praise. If you can't find no other reason to give God glory, let me give you 3 good reasons right now. Number 1, he woke you up this morning, and number 2, he woke you up this morning. And number 3, he woke you up this morning. And if I kept on going, I could give you 4, 5, and 6. 4, 5, and 6. He woke you up this morning. He woke you up this morning. He woke you up this morning. And mere fact that he woke you up this morning lets me know that whatever I go through today, because he woke me up, he gonna carry me through this day. High five your neighbor and say, I got a reason to give him glory. Well, verse number 12. Rahab says, we know that he's God. We've heard of his works. We've heard of what he's done. Now, I need you to do me a favor. Right here in verse 12 and 13. I told you, number 1, about protection. Told you, secondly, about proclamation. But between verses 12 and 13, I see a promise. Because she said, now, since I have shown kindness to you, I need you to do something for me. But not just for me, but for me and my family. See, sometimes God will use you to be the one that brings salvation to your whole family. I know sometimes the load gets heavy. I know sometimes you get tired of being the one that always got to run to the rescue, but sometimes God got to use you to bring salvation to your whole. Because understand this, if your other family members had enough sense to be the rescuer, then God will use them to do the rescuing. But some of them, and I'm not talking about your family because I don't want to get beat up today, but some of them ain't been to church since the last time somebody died in your family. But check this out. You here every week and you give God glory every week. And so you got to be the one that will bring salvation to your family and to your house. So what did Rahab say? She said, now, understand this. She said, since I've shown kindness to you, I want you to show kindness to my father's house. And give me your word that you would do it. Verse 13, she said, now, this is what I need you to do. I need you to make sure that when Jericho is invaded, that you will save my father, my mother, my brothers, and my sisters, all alive. But check this out. She didn't stop there. She said, my father, my mother, my brother, my sisters, and everything that they have. I need you to make sure all my kinfolk is saved. And my sisters and my brothers, on this third Sunday in September, I come by here to serve you notice and to give you some good news is that God is still in the saving business. I wonder, is there anybody here that don't mind testifying that when God got you covered, he won't just cover you, but he'll cover everything connected to you. See, I thank God when I'm able to fly in airplanes, I don't worry about the plane crashing down. I don't worry about if it's a plane full of sinners, because I understand that because I'm on the aircraft, God gonna save the whole airplane. And you gotta understand that because you are the one that God is gonna use to bring salvation, he gonna save everybody connected to you. He gonna save everybody around you. Is there anybody here that don't mind testifying that you'll be the one? Well, high five your neighbor and say, neighbor, I'll be the one. Well, as I close today, Rahab said, I need you to make sure that all of our lives are delivered from death. Make sure that my father, my mother, my siblings, my nieces and my nephews, my cousins and my second cousins and my third cousins and my grandparents and my great-grandparents, and make sure that all of them are saved. Make sure that those folk that ain't really blood, but they just stopped by the house, and they've been stopping by the house so long that we consider them distant cousins. Make sure that they saved too, because I've been kind to you, so show some kindness to me. And so as I looked at these three different phenomena, I see John Q. What he does is he decides that if Mikey is going to be saved, if Mikey's life is going to be spared, if Mikey is going to have another opportunity to live life, he said, what I'm willing to do, I'm willing to lose my life so that my son can live. But thank God that he's still in the saving business, because John didn't have to die, because there's always a ram in the bush. And somebody can testify this morning that the reason you shouting like you are is because the ram got you out of your jam. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, I thank God for the ram in the bush. I thank God that when I should have gave up, when I should have thrown in the towel, the ram showed up out of nowhere. John Q said, I thank God that somebody had to die in order for my son to live. But then Rahab said, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to show these men kindness so that when Jericho is torn asunder, my household will be saved. But I'm out of here when I tell you about this third person that was in starting the saving business. I told you that John was going to save his son. I told you Rahab saved her family. But can I close on this third Sunday when I tell you about a man named Jesus that came down through 42 generations. He stepped off in a town called Bethlehem. He was raised up in Nazareth. At the age of 12, he looked at his mother and his father and said, don't you know I got to be about my father's business? I heard, Lord knows I heard that for 33 and a half years, this man by the name of Jesus, he went around healing the sick, raising the dead, unstopping deaf ears, and unloosing stammering tongues. But I heard that it all came to a conclusion one Thursday when they took my Jesus from court hall to court hall. They tried to pin all kind of stuff on this man, but then I heard, good God from Zion, they said, we got to kill him, we got to crucify him, because he been doing too much good around town. And what happened was, one Friday, oh shucks it now, one Friday, they took my Jesus, they led him up the Via Dolorosa to a hill called Calvary. I heard, Lord knows I heard, they led him to that hill and they nailed him in his hands, they nailed him in his feet, they placed a crown of 72 thorns on his head, and I got to be honest, they were doing fine as long as he was still on the ground. But Jesus had already said, if I be lifted up from the earth, I will draw all men unto me, which lets me know the higher they lifted him, the more he started drawing. The higher they took him up, the more he started drawing. And on that Friday, he hung there from the 6th to the 9th hour. I heard that darkness fell over the earth. I heard that the veil of the temple was rent in twain. I heard that the centurion said, surely this must be the Son of God. He hung his head in the locks of his shoulder. And what happened? He gave up the ghost. What does that mean? He died. Does anybody in here know he died? If you know he died, let me hear you say yeah. Say yeah. But that's not how the story ends. I heard they took Jesus, put him in Joseph of Arimathea's brand new tomb. He laid there all night Friday. He laid there all day Saturday. He laid there all night Saturday night. And just when the enemy thought that he won, just when they thought it was over, just when they put a period at the end of the story, I had my rock, pushed back the rock, stepped out the rock, stood on the rock, and said, I am the Rock of Ages that got all power in my hands. Is he all right? I said, is he all right? Is he all right? If you know he is, let me hear you say, yeah. Say yeah. High five your neighbor and say, neighbor, I'm so glad that I'm the one that God uses. I'm the one that God chose. I'm the one that God saves. I'm the one that God covers. I'm the one that God protects. I'm the one that God keeps. I'm the one that he died for. Yeah! Yeah! Yeah, yeah. I heard the songwriter say, you thought I was worth saving, so you came and changed my life. You thought I was worth keeping, so you cleaned me up inside. You thought I was to die for, so you sacrificed your life so I could be free, so I could be whole. And now I will tell everybody that I know. Is there anybody here that thank the Lord that he saved you? Is there anybody here that thank the Lord that he made a way for you? Well, do me a favor and throw your arm around your neighbor and say, neighbor, I got to be honest. God, he's keeping me. God, he's protecting me. God, he's sustaining me. God, he's holding me. Won't he do it? Won't he do it? Won't he do it? Won't he do it? Say yeah. Say yeah. Say yeah. No. Is he all right? I said, is he all right? Is he all right? Say yeah. Say yeah. I just believe if we were down south in Mississippi, Alabama, or Georgia, right about now, one of the mothers on the mother's board, she would scream out and say, one thing I know, I've been born again. One thing I know, I've been born again. If the fire keeps on burning, I can't hold my peace.